Okay, so Mark here from Rock and Load. This evening I am joined by two parts of the puzzle of what is Skinny Knowledge. British alt-rock, grunge and pop-punk band. The guys are dropping their sophomore album October 27th entitled 22. And Andy and Rob are here this evening with me to tell me all things Skinny and Knowledge. Lads, how's it going?
All good. All good. How are you?
So listen, for anybody unfamiliar with the band, tell us a little bit of the history of it first and foremost.
Andy started the project. It was like a lockdown studio project. So he recorded the first album, sort of Dave Grohl style, playing everything.
Butt naked.
Exactly. Yeah. So and then obviously coming out of lockdown brought people in to start gigging. So that's when I joined the band. And yeah, had a few different lineup changes since then. So
yeah.
I think
Handful of guitarists.
handful of guitarists, couple of drummers. It's been a good ride so far. Obviously, pretty happy with the lineup we've got now with Max and Mike. And yeah, just sort of gone on from there, doing gigs. Obviously, released the first album, and we've done a couple of singles since then as well. So yeah.
Yeah. And so, Andy, what was the idea behind the project in the first place then? Had you come out of another band at that stage and were just sort of waiting for some inspiration?
Kind of. I was in another originals band in 2018, which I left. It was kind of like Irish punk stuff, like Flogging Molly, Dropkick Murphys, that kind of thing. And it was fun, but I was just playing drums in that, and I felt like it wasn't quite the thing that I wanted to be doing. But then I didn't do anything for about a year and a half, and I kind of got into a little bit of a slump where I was just kind of playing like bar gigs and stuff like that. I wasn't particularly enjoying music. So I thought I'd try something different, and decided to kind of just write a few songs on my own. No real intention of setting up a band or even recording it properly or putting anything out. It was more just like it was more kind of therapeutic for me just to kind of try something different and kind of get a bit of excitement back from music, as it were. And then these songs started coming together and the demo sounded great. And I thought, okay, like we've just hit lockdown, can't really do anything else anyway. So went into the studio and recorded the whole album properly and had it all properly done. And it sounded wicked. And that was kind of the point where I thought, actually, I think it might be kind of cool to actually put a band together and play these songs live.
Yeah. And with the demo or the original album, the debut album then, so did you tackle all the instruments yourself at that stage because of the lockdown, or was it a...
Yeah, so I recorded the guitars, bass and vocals at home. And then I went into the studio. We did a similar thing for this album, to be fair. Yeah. And then went into the studio. I recorded all the drums in the studio, and then we like reamped all the guitars. And then had someone mix it all. And then, yeah, similarly with this album, but obviously the other guys are actually playing on it this time rather than it just being me.
Yeah.
Similar thing, recorded a lot of it at home. And then went into the studio, and I still did the drums on this album, to be fair, because we had a bit of a drum change or drummer change rather between the albums. So I did the drums on this one as well. And then sounded cool, man.
And out of curiosity then, so like what's that process like then when you're doing it on your own? It must be sort of like quite intense, you know, if you're covering all the bases, trying to record all the separate parts for yourself, and obviously trying to make something as a final piece. It's got to be a hefty sort of weight to carry.
Yeah, it's a strange one. I mean, it's hard because I'm often quite self-critical. So if I'm sat there and I'm writing something and there's a big part of me that thinks, no, this is rubbish, don't use it. Whereas if you at least had other members involved, they might actually kind of reaffirm you and say, no, that is cool. Like we can use that. Whereas me, it was just like, no, don't use that, don't use that, don't use that. So trying to kind of be happy with everything in the end was quite a challenge. But also I am a bit of a control freak, because the rest of the band know. So also it was kind of nice in the sense that I didn't have to listen to anyone else. So
yeah.
I could just like, but obviously I much prefer it now, having the guys on board, and it's nice to have like different ideas and it kind of coming together. But at that point there's kind of pros and cons to both sides of it, I think. But you know, if you're in a band that doesn't necessarily have other members, which are good at writing or their inputs aren't quite as strong necessarily, then it's easier to kind of tackle it on your own because you don't have to kind of take on board anyone else's ideas.
Yeah. And what about
it's been nice to have the best of both if I was doing it that way, but I'm looking forward to. I always wanted it to be a band. I wanted it to be four people, four guys that, you know, kind of come together. I know still I've done the majority of the writing on this album as well, but it's been nice that when it's come to recording or like we've practiced stuff, like we all kind of have ideas in it and it comes together as a finished thing. So
yeah, I was just wondering about the sort of process of sort of trying to sign off and say a song's finished, because obviously you can internally sort of tinker at something, especially when you're working on your own, you know, just 3 o'clock in the morning inspiration, getting up and redoing a chorus or a bridge or something like that there, you know. Do you find it easy to step back from it at the end of it?
Normally the process is that when a song I feel is kind of getting together, I'll probably leave it for a little bit. Or if I think that it's finished, I'll leave it for a little bit. I'll listen to it for 2 or 3 weeks. And then like even just driving about or whatever, I'll just have it on. And then something might then pop into my head and think, oh, actually, no, I'll change that or I'll change that. Or if nothing comes to me, I think, okay, I think that song's finished, or I'll either send it to you guys and see what they think.
And with all of the stuff you've sent it over, and although you like write the majority of it, the rest of us will sort of chip in ideas like, oh, maybe change this slightly or like add a harmony there kind of thing. So yeah, it does sort of have a collaboration to it as well.
Talking of coming up with ideas at 3 o'clock though, to be fair, I did have that beginning of this year. I had the instrumental written for ages and ages and had all the melody mapped out. And often or not, I normally do lyrics after the rest of the song. I put it off because I don't really like writing lyrics that much. And for ages, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to write this song. And I literally woke up in the middle of the night at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and just the whole thing just came out in one go. And I was like, sweet. And then it was 4:30 in the morning. I was like, cool, back to sleep.
So. Trying to switch the brain off after that there, though, can't be fun.
Yeah, no, it's weird how randomly sometimes it does just come to you. You can be kind of, sometimes you can try and force something out and it just doesn't happen. Like you have that writer's block thing. Whereas I often find that things kind of come to you when you're like just not even thinking about it. If you're doing something completely different, your mind is elsewhere, and it almost kind of like frees up your creative side to just, I don't know, something sparks and then it kind of comes to you, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I think it's true of many things in life. You know, sometimes you just have to actually let go of the anxiety of whatever it is you want to achieve, and then it'll come to you eventually. You know.
Yeah.
And so obviously you're progressing on then, obviously, with the new album coming out. So it was written again last year, and a lot of the sort of songwriting, I believe, is sort of heavy, sort of from your own personal perspective. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the album was called 22. I came up with the name for it because it is almost like a journal of everything that happened in 2022 for me. It was a pretty tough year. Went through a breakup, and then the post-breakup was just horrendous. So I've had many things to say and get off my chest, and I've kind of used this album as a way of doing that.
It's been very therapeutic.
Yeah, even more so than the last one, because the actual topics of this one are a lot closer to home. But yeah, so it's a bit heavier, it's a bit angrier than the last one. But that's, again, it's just kind of the way that I've been feeling. So I just had lots of things to say, and yeah, kind of used the songs as a way of doing that, to express my feelings on certain matters, which I won't delve too deeply into. I might struggle. So. And
you touched on there. You say you generally write the lyrics after you've written the music. Is that right? Yeah.
So a few of the songs I've written with Matt Bigland, who's the singer of Dinosaur Pile Up. And I kind of explained to him, like, we did our first session last May or June. And I kind of, told him everything that happened, so he fully understood the situation as well. And then I found it a lot easier to write lyrics now that I've worked with him, because he's really good with it. And we kind of work together on stuff. And I've kind of got a new way of looking at writing lyrics now, which is quite nice, which I didn't have before, like a new outlook on it. So I don't despise it as much as I used to.
Yeah. And how did that relationship come about, you and Matt?
So he He set up a Patreon, like a pay monthly thing that musicians could kind of get involved with him. And I think it initially started actually like the year before. And you could like send him demos and he would kind of just give feedback on it.
Yeah.
But then I stopped paying for that because something happened. We couldn't afford it anymore. But then we kind of kept in contact for like a year through emails and stuff. And then eventually when I kind of picked myself out of the slum that was last year, I decided to write stuff. And I thought, oh, I'll get in contact with Matt and see if he actually kind of wanted to write a whole song together. And we did that and it worked really well. And then we had a few more sessions. I went to his place in Brighton November last year and we came up with 2 more. One of which is Disobey. And yeah, so the relationship kind of grew that way and it's been really cool. And we've kept in contact and yeah, so it's all good.
It's interesting, though, isn't it, the approach you sort of took with it, because I suppose a lot of people don't like the idea of maybe reaching out to somebody or, you know, trying to follow some sort of formula when it comes to songwriting. But there is obviously a very, depending on your take on it, like you look at, say, Nashville singers and songwriters and stuff, the way they collaborate and the way they write, there's obviously a very successful route for that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's obviously lots of different ways you can go about it.
2 heads are always better than one.
Yeah, I think so. I think as long as you've got a pairing that works well and you both have kind of similar influences, which, you know, me and Matt have, you know, we both love Foos and Nirvana and that kind of grunge stuff. And also, you know, Sum 41, Weezer, all these kind of bands. So yeah, it worked and it worked really well, actually. I think we were both quite surprised at how naturally it felt. It didn't feel like we were bumping heads at all.
Yeah.
I think I'd come up with an idea and he'd just instantly be like, yeah, that's great. Or he would come up with something and I'd be like, oh, well, I was trying to get something in there. And so it felt quite organic, which was quite nice. It wasn't forced. And yeah, it's the first time that I've actually written with like an actual songwriter. So I was quite nervous about, again, like kind of giving over that control a little bit. But luckily, you know, he's obviously a very established writer. So I kind of trust his instincts and what he's saying as well. And it was quite nice to hear from him, you know, the ideas that I come up with from someone that I kind of look up to. That what I was doing was good, which was always nice to hear.
I think there's always a slight element of imposter syndrome, isn't there? Whenever you're doing this sort of stuff, that you know, is it worthy? Are you good enough, sort of thing? Especially when you're sitting down with an established musician, and to get that sort of validation and feedback must have been good for you, sort of reassuring.
Yeah, it was nice. I mean, it's always good to hear from your dad that you're doing something good.
Yeah.
To hear it from someone that, yeah, as I said, you know, you look up to and is, you know, an idol to a certain extent. You know, they're doing what we would like to be doing in, you know, 5 years. So
yeah,
to know that we're kind of on the right track, at least with the songwriting side of it, is good. So,
and did you say then again, you sort of pretty much self-recorded this album yourselves?
Yeah, so we did a lot of it at mine. The tracking of the guitars, bass, vocals, and then went into the studio to do the drums, again, reamped all the guitars and stuff, and then had it mixed. I was working at a studio a few months ago, so we mixed it there. I had a little bit of help with it, but not too much. I kind of left it down to Harrison, and then mastered by the same guy that's been doing it for the last couple of years. So
yeah. And out of curiosity, do you enjoy that recording process, all that experience of doing it within the studio, or do you find a bit of pressure off the back of that?
I like being in the studio.
I enjoy it. I think like hearing something come from an initial idea, and then you layer it up. You know, you start with a guitar riff and then you add drums and bass and vocals and harmonies and all that sort of stuff, and it sounds totally different to how it did when you first had the idea. But when you then for me, it's that moment where you sit back and listen to it in full for the first time and you think, yeah, that's cool, I did that. That's awesome. Yeah, absolutely. The full effect of the band coming together for the first time, really.
Yeah. I think taking it from a demo to that finished product is a very cool process. Because also when you're in the studio, you also, you know, rather than just being at mine recording something, like actually being in that environment, you often come up with a couple of little things here and there, which is quite nice changes. But yeah, taking it from that initial idea, like you said, to then having that finished product and just the whole process of that happening is very cool. So
Yeah. Well, obviously, I got an advance listen of the album where I sent that across. So it's a great album, very, very strong. You know, I think sometimes you can have a preconception. Sometimes, like if I put out a press release, for example, see a band, don't necessarily listen to them. And then when you sit down and actually give it a go, you go, not what I expected, different vibe altogether. But it's got a real melodic, hefty sort of sound to it. And I say earworms, like packed with earworms sort of songs, you know, that will really embed themselves in your brain, you know, so you've done a good job there.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's all about those earworms. Got to get them in there.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Any particular favorite tracks on the album for yourselves?
What about you? What do you think?
I like most of them, to be fair. I mean, yeah, there's a couple that obviously I think aren't my favorite, but there's none that I think is a bad track.
Yeah.
I'd say top three, I'd probably go for I Wanna, Strikeout,
yeah,
and I think Disobey as well. They're probably my
literally the first three tracks.
Yeah.
Just turn it off after there. Turn it off after there.
Yeah. I think, mine kind of changed whilst recording it. So the fifth track, which is Devil Lives Within, I again had the instrumental for ages and ages, and it literally got to about a week before it was going in for being mixed, and I hadn't done the vocals on it. So I was under the impression that we probably weren't going to get it done in time. It wasn't
that you just hadn't done the vocals, you hadn't written the lyrics for it.
Oh yeah, no, I hadn't even written the lyrics.
So we had like no idea what the vocal melody even was.
No. And then so I was kind of thinking, the instrumental was kind of cool. And then somehow, just like a few days before it went in to be mixed, I was on a dog walk and I just came up with all the lyrics. I went straight home, recorded them all, done. And then instantly, I think that then pretty much became my favorite, just like that, which is quite cool.
The breakdown is
super heavy. Yeah. I think it's one of the heaviest things we've done, which is cool.
It is great.
And I think the lyrics, considering I wrote them in about half an hour, I think are really good. And then, I like Strikeout as well. Disobey is another favorite.
Good breakdown in Strikeout.
Yeah. It's a lot more riffs in this one. Kind of like boppy, headbangy riffs, which is kind of cool.
And the song titles, out of curiosity, just made me think of another band who literally the song titles aren't even related to the song. So do you have a song title in mind when you're writing it, or is it sort of something that comes afterwards?
Depends, I think. Sometimes I come up with a name for a song or an idea for a song, which ends up being a song title, and then the song kind of progresses just from that initial idea. Like Devil Lives Within, that was one that I came up. Originally, it was called You're Pretty on the Outside, but the Devil Lives Within, but ended up changing the lyric to You Want to Be a Hero, but the Devil Lives Within. So I just shortened it to Devil Lives Within. But the concept was still kind of there. I think most of the time it probably comes afterwards.
Yeah, it's normally just either the strongest line from the chorus or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if it comes after it tends to just be like pick a word from the chorus.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's sort of you come up with the title or the concept, and then the rest
stick with it.
The rest of the lyric kind of flow from the title.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, have you had a chance yet to test any of these songs live?
We've played a handful, haven't we?
Yeah.
We started opening the gigs with I Wanna, which is the opening track. We've played Disobey a couple of times. What else have we played? Goes Around, Comes Around. We've played quite a few times. A song about lunch we started playing. I think that's it at the moment, isn't it? Is it just those four?
We did play Smoke for a little while, but we've
Going Up in Smoke. We played it, I think, like a handful of times. I think that was probably last year, actually. I don't think we played it this year.
They were sort of that and Goes Around were like two of the first ones written for the album.
Yeah. So we played those a few times.
And is it weird as an artist like yourselves, like you're building up to October 27th with the release of the album? You must have been sitting on the songs and the music for a long time. Is it sort of strange? Like it must be almost like old news to you guys. You know, is there an element of excitement still, or is it you're still you're hyped about this and you need to get excited for the album launch?
Yeah, I think so. Like, obviously, we're excited for everyone else to hear it.
Yeah.
It's more sort of anticipation, as you said, because we've had the songs for so long. We've been listening to them for the last few months, going, these are really great. and we just want everyone else to hear them as well. So
I think you kind of got when you're listening to the demos over and over and over and over again for ages, the novelty of the songs do end up wearing off a little bit, but then when we get them actually properly done, it almost like reignites that spark again. So when they all got finished, and we got the masters kind of late July, early August, and that was then the point where like, oh yeah, these songs are still great. Like this is really cool.
And sounds awesome as well. Like,
I mean, one of the songs on the album Home I wrote 8 years ago. So that one, I think that's the least favorite on the album for me, but I think that's just because I've heard like it's so old for me. That's nothing has really changed on it. So, and it was funny because when we were talking to Wes, our manager, and I sent in the album and I said to him, "Oh, what are your standout tracks?" And one of them he said was Home, and I was like, "Really?" Like, I think that's like one of the worst ones, but it's just because I've been listening to it for like 8 years, so I'm kind of bored of it now.
Riff in the verse. That's really hooky.
Yeah, like beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Isn't it funny? Like, you know, you could have 10 tracks on an album, and you'll speak to 10 different people, and they'll all have a favorite track, or they'll resonate with one song because of a lyric or something like that. There, which is, and probably even misinterpret it as well. But for whatever reason, it's the song that stands out for them.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And so, what's next for you guys, and what have you got lined up just prior to the launch?
So we've got another single coming out soon. Obviously we've then got the launch gig. We've got a couple of gigs before that, so we're playing at the Lighthouse. Is it next week, isn't it?
Next Thursday.
Yeah. So that's a local one for us, with our friends Kingsfoil and a band called Galaxy Thief. And then we've also got Quarantune Rocks Festival at the beginning of October, so that'd be good.
Where's
that?
Leicester.
Okay.
Kind of way.
Yeah, maybe.
I think
somewhere Midlandsy. Yeah, it's on my sat nav somewhere. Yeah.
And I like if all the dreams come true, for example, and this takes off for you, like what would be the ideal next 12 months for you? Who would you love to be sort of supporting or playing alongside?
Green Day and Foo Fighters. Yeah, Green Day and Foo Fighters.
No, I think realistically, so obviously I kind of got that friendship with Matt from Dinosaur Pilot. Ironically, I'm actually wearing the t-shirt. And I know that they're in the process of writing a new album. So they'll be touring at some point. So I'd like to think that we could maybe get some shows with them. I think that would be really cool.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
And then, we've got a couple of shows actually booked in with one of our managers, other artists, which we can't announce yet, but we're looking forward to doing a couple of shows with them. And hopefully just get out on the road a bit more, get some support shows, get a couple of tours and stuff, because we haven't done loads of gigging like relentlessly yet. Like coming out of lockdown was obviously difficult, and trying to get on shows after lockdown was really hard because so much was postponed. So all the gig lineups and all that kind of stuff was still sorted, but it was then just delayed. So trying to get on anything was really hard.
Yeah.
So now we're kind of out of that. So hopefully next year, like we've started getting some festival bookings in as well, which is cool now. And just getting in front of as many people as we can, because I think we have got some really strong songs. We've got a really good album that we're bringing out, so we just need as many people to see and hear it as possible now, I think.
Yeah, very good, very good.
Sounds kind of obvious as a band. Like we need to go out and do gigs, but we do. Like we're not super. We're still quite new to the gigging thing with this lineup, this band. And I think now's the time that we really need to kind of push it. So.
Yeah, well, I think sometimes you need to take a little bit of time to sit and plan all that out and make sure what you're doing is effective and right for you as well. The right fit and because you can throw yourself out there into the wind and not stick to anything. So you just want to make sure that what you're doing has got real value to you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Cool. Look, best of luck with the lads. Obviously, looking forward to the launch and see how things progress from here on in, see what sort of buzz is created by the album itself. Just a reminder for everybody again, 22 is out October 27th. Make sure you do check out. What's your socials, guys, and people can follow you?
Skinny Knowledge on Facebook, Skinny Knowledge Official on Instagram, and Twitter.
Skinny K Official on Twitter.
Skinny K Official.
Otherwise, it's too many letters. So
I know the fingers get sore.
And we're not cool enough to use TikTok TikTok. So
yeah.
Well, you got to work in those dance routines, you know.
yeah, no, yeah. We're too busy dressing up as wizards.
Well, good luck with that anyway. Okay, guys, look, thanks again for your time tonight. Lovely talking to you, and best of luck again, as I say, with the launch.
Sweet, thank you.
I'm just here because I wanna party.